When a canine dog won't stop growling at the school's nicest face, you have to wonder what's hiding behind the smile. Cedar Hollow was a quiet coastal town where nothing big ever seemed to happen. Kids rode bikes without helmets. Neighbors waved while mowing their lawns. The biggest news last year had been a raccoon getting stuck in the church bell tower. So when Officer Caleb Vance transferred from the city, most people just nodded politely and went on with their day. Caleb didn't mind. After years of chasing armed robbers and responding to violent calls, he was happy for something quieter. He had seen too much chaos. This town was supposed to be his fresh start. His new partner was anything but quiet, though Maverick was a sable German shepherd with sharp ears and a deep chest. He had trained with top handlers and had a nose for trouble. Caleb had heard stories how Maverick once found a missing toddler under a collapsed shed, or how he sniffed out painkillers hidden in a math teacher's thermos. The dog didn't bark for no reason. So when Maverick growled low and steady outside the counselor's office at Cedar Hollow Elementary, Caleb stopped in his tracks. It was Maverick's first school walkthrough, just a friendly visit. Show the kids what a police dog looks like. Caleb expected tail wags and curious stares, not tension. Inside the office sat Ms. Laurel Devins, the school's guidance counselor. She was pouring tea from a pale blue thermos, dressed in soft colors, her hair tucked neatly behind her ears. She looked like someone who read bedtime stories and handed out tissues. "Oh my," she said with a gentle laugh. "I must smell like tuna. I had a sandwich earlier." But Maverick didn't sniff. He stared. His hackles rose. The low rumble in his throat didn't stop. Caleb tugged the leash gently. "Easy boy, it's okay." Ms. Devins smiled and stepped forward. "You must be Officer Vance. We've heard great things about Maverick." Maverick growled louder. A few kids walking past turned to look. A teacher peeked around the corner. Caleb forced a smile and guided the dog away. "Sorry about that," he said. "He's still getting used to the place." "It's quite all right," Ms. Devins said, her voice even, but her eyes looked strange, almost a calm dot after that. Caleb watched Maverick closely. During classroom visits, Maverick wagged his tail when kids petted him. He performed tricks during an assembly. Everyone clapped. Everyone smiled. Except for one child, Sasha Ellery. She was in 3rd grade, with round glasses and long dark braids. She didn't talk much. When the class clapped, Sasha sat still. When Maverick came close, she didn't reach out to touch him like the others. She just stared. Later that day, Sasha's teacher handed Caleb a note. "She wanted you to have this," the teacher said. "She's quiet, doesn't open up often." Caleb opened the folded paper. It was a drawing, done in pencil and crayon. A woman with red lips and a smiling face stood over a small bed. In her hand was a syringe with red liquid. The words under the drawing said, "My quiet time." Caleb felt a chill crawl down his spine. That same day, during lunch, Caleb saw Ms. Devins walking across the cafeteria. She placed a gentle hand on Sasha's shoulder, whispering something. Maverick froze, then barked loud, sharp, full of warning. Every head in the lunchroom turned. Trays clattered. Sasha flinched. "Whoa," a teacher said. "What's going on?" Caleb stepped between Maverick and Ms. Devins. The dog stayed still, muscles tense. "I don't know what's gotten into him," Caleb said. "I'm sure he's just overexcited," Ms. Devins replied, her smile still there, but now it didn't quite reach her eyes. Later that evening, Caleb sat at his kitchen table, the drawing from Sasha still in his hand. Maverick lay beside his chair, tail twitching now and then. "She's scared," Caleb said softly, "and you know it." Maverick let out a soft huff, like he agreed. Caleb picked up the phone and called a contact from his old department. "Hey," he said. "I need a quiet background check. A school counselor. Something's not right." Outside, the wind blew through the trees, and the town of Cedar Hollow stayed quiet. But inside Caleb's chest, something had started to stir. Maverick barked, and when Maverick barked, Caleb had learned to listen. The next morning, Officer Caleb Vance returned to Cedar Hollow Elementary with Maverick at his side. He told himself it was just another school check-in, nothing more. But deep down, he already knew something wasn't right. Maverick proved it again as soon as they stepped inside. The German Shepherd's ears twitched. His head turned toward the counselor's office. Then the growl came low and steady, like thunder under the floor. Ms. Devons was walking down the hallway, holding a stack of folders. When she saw them, she smiled wide and waved. "Morning, Officer Vance." "Morning, Maverick." The dog didn't wag his tail. He didn't blink. He just stood still, growling. Caleb gave a tight nod. "Morning." After she walked away, he knelt down beside Maverick. "Same woman, same reaction," he whispered. "What are you trying to tell me?" That day, Caleb asked the school secretary to show him recent student visit logs. She hesitated. But when he said it was part of a routine safety check, she handed them over as he flipped through the names. One stood out, Sasha Ellery. Her name showed up 6 times in the last 3 weeks. Headaches, fatigue, too tired to finish class. But something was odd. None of those visits were followed by a call to her mother, and none had parent pickup records who signed her out. Caleb asked. "She returned to class, I think," the secretary replied, unsure. Caleb checked with Sasha's teacher. "She didn't come back after her last visit," the teacher said. "I assumed she went home sick." That evening, Caleb knocked on Sasha's front door. Her mum, Eloise, answered. She looked tired, her work apron still tied around her waist. "Oh, hello, officer. Is something wrong? I just have a few questions about Sasha. May I come in?" Inside, Sasha sat quietly on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. She didn't look sick, but she didn't look happy either. "Has she said anything about school lately?" Caleb asked. Eloise shook her head. "Not really. I always thought she was just shy. Miss Devons told me she has anxiety. Said she was giving her herbal drops to help her stay calm during class." "Herbal drops?" Caleb asked. "Yeah. Something natural. Sasha said they made her sleepy." Sasha looked down at her blanket. Maverick stepped forward and gently laid his head on her feet. She whispered, "He makes me feel safe." Caleb leaned forward. "Sasha, has Ms. Devons ever given you medicine that made you feel funny?" Sasha didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pajama pocket and pulled out a small, sticky note. On it, in tiny letters, it said, "Check the bottom drawer." That night, Caleb sat in his truck, heart pounding. He didn't want to jump to conclusions. But everything inside him, everything Maverick had sensed told him the truth, was darker than anyone wanted to believe. The next day, while Ms. Devons was away for a meeting, Caleb asked the school janitor to let him into her office. "Routine check," he said. "Won't take long." In the bottom drawer, hidden behind files, Caleb found it a small lockbox. Inside were tiny vials with no labels and a folder marked Echo Phase. He took photos of everything: doses, child initials, notes like responds well to microdose, and less crying, more quiet. Back in the hallway, Maverick stood guard. His eyes didn't leave the door. That afternoon, Caleb called Agent Lena Ortiz with the state's Child Welfare Division. "We've seen these signs before," she said over the phone. "It could be part of a wider testing program. We've had whispers, but no hard evidence until now." The school board, however, wasn't pleased. "We appreciate your service, Officer Vance," Principal Dr. Harmonfeld said in a tight voice. "But you and your dog are stirring up fear. We need calm." "With all due respect, sir," Caleb replied, "calm is what got us here in the first place." Later that evening, as Caleb poured Maverick a bowl of food, the dog didn't eat. He paced the apartment, stopping now and then to stare at the front door, like he was waiting for something or someone. Caleb stared at the vials, still on his desk. "They trusted her," he said out loud, "and now they don't even know what happened to them." Maverick walked over and rested his head on Caleb's knee. "I'm listening, buddy," Caleb said. "I'm finally listening." 3 days later, the school counselor, Miss Devons, was suddenly on leave. No announcement, no goodbye, just gone. The school board called it a personal break. But Caleb knew better. A substitute named Nora Winslow took over the counseling office. She was older, quiet, and wore glasses with thick pink frames. She smiled at everyone and brought coloring books for the kids. But Maverick didn't smile. On the first day Nora showed up, Maverick froze outside her office. He didn't growl or bark, just stood stiff, staring at the door. Caleb placed a hand on his partner's neck. The fur was standing up again. That night, Caleb dug deeper. The file folder from the counselor's drawer had listed a company name, Reverence Neurolab. He searched online. The company ran wellness programs for kids in low-income schools. They claimed to help children with anxiety and behavior challenges, but there was no address, no phone number, just a contact form that led nowhere. The next morning, a second student, Benji Arlo, didn't show up to class. The teacher found him behind the school library, dizzy and confused. His backpack was gone. When Caleb arrived, he found Maverick sniffing near a bookcase. The dog scratched at a panel behind it. Inside, hidden behind fake books, was Benji's backpack. Tucked into one pocket was a phone. Caleb opened the audio app. There was one recording. A woman's voice, calm and even, said, "Day 5. Benji shows improved obedience. Less crying, more silence. We'll increase the dosage next week." Caleb's stomach turned. It wasn't Miss Devon's voice. It was someone else. He called Agent Ortiz immediately. "This is bigger than we thought," she said. "Bring that phone to me." As they met in the state office parking lot, Agent Ortiz flipped through files and said, "We found payments from Reverence Neurolab to your school principal, Dr. Feld. Wellness consultant fees, almost $75,000. Caleb stared at her. "He knew, and he made sure you and Maverick would be taken off campus," she added. "He said you were causing too much panic." Back at Cedar Hollow Elementary, Dr. Feld acted calm when Caleb walked into his office. "Morning. Officer Vance," he said, sipping coffee. "What brings you by?" "Just tying up some loose ends," Caleb replied. Maverick sat by his side, silent but watchful. "We've already handled the situation. Miss Devons is no longer working here. This isn't about her anymore." Feld tilted his head. "Oh, did you approve the installation of outside programs from Reverence Neurolab?" Caleb asked. "I approve of dozens of vendors," Feld said, eyes narrowing. "It's routine. You signed off on a trial that drugged children," Caleb said. Feld's hand tightened around his coffee mug. "You're making wild accusations." Maverick let out a low growl. Feld stood. "Get your dog out of my office. He growls at danger," Caleb said. "And right now, he's looking at you." That evening, Agent Ortiz and a team of officers raided Feld's home. Hidden behind camping gear in his garage was a locked filing cabinet. Inside were emails between Feld and Reverence Neurolab, using codenames for children and reports on their behavior. One email said, "Ready for Phase 2, target, Sasha Ellery." Caleb felt his chest tighten. They weren't just testing kids. They were choosing who to silence next. He rushed to Sasha's house. She was on the porch, coloring with chalk. When Maverick jumped from the truck, he ran straight to her. She hugged him tight. Caleb turned to her mum. "They picked her because she's kind. Quiet. They thought no one would notice." Tears filled Eloise's eyes. "Will she be okay?" Caleb nodded slowly. "We'll make sure she is." But one question still haunted him. If Ms. Devons and Feld were working together, who else knew? That night, Caleb and Agent Ortiz looked through the emails again. One message, sent 3 days before Ms. Devons was removed, stood out. It read, "Ensure Caleb Vance is diverted. The dog, especially. Use internal resources. Delay or discredit if necessary." Caleb sat back in his chair. They knew about me, about Maverick, before this even started. Just then, Maverick stood up from the rug, ears high, tail stiff. He stared at the door. A deep growl rumbled in his chest. Then came a knock. The knock came again, louder this time. Caleb stood slowly. Maverick stayed planted in front of the door, growling, not barking, not moving. His body was tense, tail still, eyes locked. Caleb peeked through the peephole. It was Detective Ron Beckett, a fellow officer from the Cedar Hollow Police Department. Caleb had known him for years. They'd worked together on a few local cases. Beckett smiled and lifted a paper bag. "Evening," he said. "Brought coffee. Thought you could use a break." Caleb opened the door just a crack. You drove across town for coffee? Beckett gave a small shrug. Heard you were up late working. Figured you'd need the fuel. Maverick didn't move. His growl got deeper. Easy, buddy, Beckett said, chuckling. You forget I gave you jerky at Christmas. But Caleb didn't laugh. Maverick never growled at friendly people. Only when something was wrong. I think you should go, Caleb said quietly. Beckett's face changed. The smile dropped. His voice lost its warmth. You sure that's how you want to play this? Caleb's fingers moved to his belt, not for his gun, but for his phone. He pressed the record. You worked with me for years, Beckett said, stepping forward. You think I'm part of this mess? I think you've got answers, Caleb said. Beckett's jaw tightened. You weren't supposed to dig this deep. Suddenly, Beckett dropped the coffee bag and pulled a taser. Caleb ducked. Maverick lunged. The dog hit Beckett in the chest, knocking him back. The taser flew across the room. Maverick didn't bite. He pinned Beckett down, holding his arm. Caleb rushed in and snapped handcuffs onto the detective. You cleared Ms. Devon's background. You buried the reports. You gave them my schedule. Caleb said. Beckett didn't fight. He just stared at Maverick. He's just a dog, he muttered. No, Caleb said. He's the reason you're not walking away. The arrest blew the case wide open. Beckett wasn't just a dirty cop. He was Reverence Neurolab's inside man. He had blocked complaints, deleted reports, and scared off anyone who got too close to the truth. The FBI searched his home and found dozens of emails. Some were threats to school staff. Others were instructions from someone called Dr. Matthias Reich, the founder of Reverence. For weeks, parents had wondered why their children were always tired or quiet after seeing the counselor. Now they know. The program was a test. The children were the subjects, and the adults were the ones pretending to help. Soon, arrests were made. Laurel Devons, Hal Trent, Dr. Feld, Detective Beckett. But one person was still missing. Dr. Reich, the man who started it all. Agent Ortiz and Caleb followed his trail to a quiet house 2 states away. It was empty, covered in dust. But in the basement, they found a strange room. 1 chair, soundproof walls, and locked drawers filled with school files. Reich had been watching from a distance. Planning more, the town of Cedar Hollow held an emergency meeting. The school board called it a miscommunication. They used words like internal error and unexpected violation of policy. Caleb sat in the back, jaw clenched. When it ended, he visited Sasha Ellery. She was doing better. Sleeping more. Laughing again. I made something for Maverick, she whispered, kneeling beside the dog. She handed Caleb a small paper with a poem written in crayon. He doesn't need words to say what's wrong. He hears our silence like a song. He barks for truth. He growls at lies. He saved my heart with loyal eyes. Caleb had to turn away so Sasha wouldn't see his eyes fill with tears. A week later, Reverence Neurolab was shut down. Its files are exposed. But Dr. Reich had vanished. Still, Maverick wouldn't stop watching the door at night. He paced, alert, like he knew the story wasn't over. One afternoon, Caleb and Maverick returned to the school not as officers, just visitors. Children gathered around. Some gave Maverick hugs. One little boy gave him a sticker. Another tied a blue ribbon to his collar. He's our hero, they said. But Caleb knew the truth. Maverick wasn't just a hero. He was the voice that no one else could hear. The one who barked when others stayed silent. The one who listened when children were too scared to speak. That night, Caleb sat on the back steps of his house. Maverick curled beside him. You saved them, he whispered, and you never said a word. Maverick wagged his tail once, in the dark. Caleb smiled. The story wasn't over, but thanks to one brave dog, the silence had been broken.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals. Love stories that stay with you long after they end.